You will, as will they. All right. I guess I should share a link so they know how to, so they can come find us, huh? That would probably be a smart idea. Nobody ever accused me of being a smart man, though. Copy Discord. Hmm. Oh my. So what's been going on in your world?
Not much so far.
It's not always a bad thing.
Still mostly waiting for the fallout from, you know, the
Yeah.
car stuff. Um, Probably won't get out of here this year like I was hoping to, because Carlene and them still haven't moved. They probably won't be able to move until sometime in October, as they still need some more money to get stuff, another vehicle, moving supplies, things like that. Um, and then, if it drags on into November, I'm not going to want to move because I don't want to try and, so I'm going to be driving a U-Haul. Um, Number one, I have never done a long range drive by myself before. About the most I've driven is around a town or between a few towns. I did a couple of times drive from Barrington to Western Springs, and that's about 45 minutes. So I've never done a multi-hour drive. I don't want to
Oh,
try and do that shit in the dead of winter.
yeah. Well, especially going where you're going.
Yeah.
They've got some really fucked up roads. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been down there many times, and yeah. I was doing 45, 50 on a road, and it looked like it went straight, and then all of a sudden I look, and it's a freaking 180, literal 180, no signage saying, "Hey, you got to turn here." Thankfully, I was in the sports car because if not, that could have been really ugly. What are
Yeah.
you
Well, basically, if I can't get everything absolutely done by mid November, I'm just going to wait until spring because I don't want to deal with driving across approximately 1/3 of the country. And for my first time doing a long distance drive, doing it solo in a U-Haul, and I don't want to have to add stupid weather, snow on top of that.
or
Um,
worse ice?
yeah, black ice. Oh God, I've driven in Chicago in the winter. Black ice. People that don't get a lot of snow don't really realize what a real threat black ice can be. Because it
Oh,
will,
especially
it
when the
will
snow
trick you.
lays on top of it.
Yeah, it will trick you. It will trick you, and it will get you. We lose anywhere from 3 to 5 people every year, sometimes a lot more, because they didn't see the black ice coming and they lose control of their vehicle. Um, and either they end up in a snowbank or they end up in somebody else's backseat, which that's all bad. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I ain't dealing with that in a freaking U-Haul truck.
Well, I had that conversation with Corey yesterday because we were
Mm.
talking about they're saying that the path of this tropical storm is supposed to go up to Illinois and Indiana, and we
Maybe.
started talking about um how Lake Michigan creates its own weather up
Oh
there
yeah.
by on its own. I said if you've never been down by Soldier Field, right at the edge of the lake in the middle of winter, I said that wind was some of the most
That shit will cut you in half.
biting. Yeah, I said and I mean I lived all my life up here in Pennsylvania. I lived through 3 blizzards up here, 4 blizzards, and I've never had wind like that.
Oh, here's another one for you. Lake Superior once generated a genuine tropical depression.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to
It
be
was
left out of all this shit.
Yeah, if you look through, you have to look through Wikipedia's archives because I don't remember what year it is right offhand. But it generated a tropical depression or a low-end tropical storm. It was just never named as a tropical system because
It didn't get
it
high enough.
yeah, well, it is so incredibly rare to get actual tropical conditions that far north. But it
Good
has
morning,
happened.
Gravy.
Hey, Gravy.
Gravy, say good morning. Just waiting on my ride. Take care of y'all. Pray we get home safe. Definitely, Gravy. I will definitely do a prayer at the end of this video, and you will definitely, and your colleagues will definitely be in our prayers. But be safe, and again, congratulations on the program, and I really hope it does work well for you, and that you're able to do the things that you're looking forward to doing now. So, have you met Gravy yet?
I have not,
Okay.
but his
Gravy
name
is
looks extra tasty.
ex-Army. Gravy is ex-Army.
Ah,
And, yeah, I found him through Eric and Skipper. Skipper goes by Desert Dwell on Discord.
all right.
He's Marine from California. And so we were both on the same live stream over there, and they posted his link, and so I went and checked him out. And I reached out to him because I saw that some of the stuff that was going on with him. And he's been on the show once, I think, maybe twice. Once, I think. We did a show about the VA. And
There's a subject and a half.
yeah. And again, it depends on who you talk to. Some people they say their VA is amazing and they've never had any problems with them, and it's like the standard of care is not consistent across the entire country. And that's a problem. But that's a problem in regular healthcare too, you know. Lori wanted me to move to Arkansas with her. And I flat out told her, I said, I can't. She said, well, why not? I said, because I can't be guaranteed that the doctors in Arkansas are going to give me the medications that I'm on. There's lots of doctors who are afraid to do that.
Yeah.
And now that she's down there, she's having problems with finding good doctors and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't want to be an I told you so, but could you imagine that was me and I had
yeah, with all your problems. You're just a problem child.
I definitely am. I cause issues all the time. Just ask Mom. She'll tell you. She's like, what the hell's wrong with you?
You want a list? You want a list?
Well, there's a list. I'm me. Hello? Have you met me?
Make me hack up a lung here. No, people don't.
I wonder where everyone is.
I don't know. I'm
weird.
Here. There's people here. I can see them. Actually, I have to point this way because my camera's reversed. There's people. I can see them up there. They're just not talking.
Well, it says there's one person on YouTube. There's probably one person over on Rumble, and that's usually a bot, I think.
Yeah.
I think they have a bot that watches and make sure that we're not doing anything stupid.
Yeah. I'm
Which, I
surprised we
mean,
didn't get flagged when Fred decided to show us the hairy tarantula on his chest.
I know they probably like that.
I probably did. Now, weather has
My,
always fascinated me, though. Um, Besides that one weird tropical system that appeared in Lake Superior, the Mediterranean occasionally gets tropical systems of its own. They're called mendicanes. They're usually very small. You know, they're nothing like the big stuff we get in the Atlantic or the Pacific. But they can get to low end, like what we would consider Category 1 hurricane strength. And they can hit just about all over. They've hit Italy, they've hit Greece. They like to hit North Africa a lot. Don't see them so much on southern France and Spain, but they've been up there. There's historical records of some pretty severe storms coming in from the Mediterranean. Hey, Thomas, good morning. I
good
see
morning,
you.
Thomas.
And the Black Sea occasionally gets tropical-like systems as well. Really, any place where you get a body of water of any truly significant size, you can develop a low-pressure system that will take on some tropical characteristics and look like a cyclone of some kind. It's also very rare, but they get them off the coast of Brazil, too. It's become a phenomenon more lately in the last, 50 years. And the Brazilian Navy, actually, their hydrological institute, has taken responsibility for the rare storms that do happen down there. About the only place that does not get tropical systems, it's incredibly rare, but it has happened a few times, is the west coast of South America. It's because of how the landmass is and how the water is around it. It doesn't often get the conditions necessary to generate a tropical system on that side of the equator. It's also incredibly hard for a tropical system to develop on the equator. There have been some that have come very, very close, but the equator itself is a dead zone because of how the planet spins and how gyroscopic forces work. There are much less gyroscopic forces right on the equator, but you start deviating away from that, the forces get better and better, more conducive to tropical system development. But there have been some that have come within a couple of degrees of the equator. I think one of them, the closest one, was about half a degree from the equator when it developed into a tropical system. And if you want some really strange tropical weather, you have to look at India. They get legitimate tropical depressions that form over land. It's called the brown water effect. And India is unique in that it's about the only place where that happens. We've come close here in the United States.
Hold on 1 second, because I want to dumb down that last part real quick for people who don't understand the terminology. What he's saying is that at the poles, the Earth spins faster than at the equator, so that difference in spin fucks up the chances of having a hurricane or tropical depression close to the equator. That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to...
No, you're fine. You're fine. Because I will launch into these explanations and I won't be thinking about my audience. No, but yeah, India is about the only place where a tropical system will form over land. We've come very close here in the United States, especially off the coast of the Carolinas, mostly South Carolina and Georgia. We've had some low pressure systems form over that part of the country and then push off into the Atlantic. And when it does, then it'll form a tropical system and hook back around and hit land. It's rare, but it happens. In India, they have all the perfect ingredients for tropical systems to form over land. I don't think it's ever gotten all the way up to a tropical storm over land, but they have had some depressions that get pretty close to the wind speed of what we would consider a tropical storm. They use a completely different set of terminology in that part of the world. And surprisingly enough, the Arabian Peninsula does occasionally get tropical systems that go up there. You wouldn't think it does because of its physical positioning, but it does. It's just rare that they get good ones that provide a lot of rain. And then the other, surprisingly, a lot of people wouldn't again, wouldn't think about this. The other place that gets a lot of tropical systems is the area around Madagascar. Because it's, that's pretty far south. Yeah. The eastern coast of southern Africa gets a surprising number of tropical systems. And they will go pretty far south into the Indian Ocean. And a few of them have come fairly close to Antarctica as post-tropical systems. But that is unique to the Indian Ocean basin, is how far south those tropical systems will not only form, but continue to go. And Australia gets a very large number of tropical systems. They're also, hey, Mike.
Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Mike. Australia also gets tropical systems that form over land, not at the same frequency or severity as India does, and almost all of theirs will eventually go off into the ocean, but sometimes they'll go off into the ocean, hook around, go back onto Australia, come off of Australia, reform, and then go back. It's like watching a surgeon make a very bad stitch, but it happens.
Been there, done that. I've had the surgeon make the very bad stitch. Actually, it wasn't the surgeon. He was teaching somebody else to do it. So,
but still,
yeah.
Meteorology was the career field that I wanted to get into if I'd been allowed to get into the Air Force. Me and another friend in high school, his name was Kevin Leonard, and myself, we wanted to get into meteorology. We had, and you realize this was the early mid-90s, we had an idea in mind to convert an M93 Fox APC, which is primarily supposed to be used by MPs, but practice didn't get used nearly as much as it was supposed to, especially at the time, into a tornado chasing vehicle, something that had an incredibly low center of gravity. It was designed to literally drive through tornadoes and get readings from the very center of the cyclonic funnel. We had like 2 notebooks full of designs, just different ideas of different meteorological instruments we could hang off of it, different ways for it to fight the winds, down to literally chopping off about a foot off the top and basically making it a custom chassis. Just take a straight line of material straight off the top, lower the deck, and push everything down, and have deflating tires and piton spikes, hydraulic spikes, massive spikes like 6-8 inches across that would fire into the ground either by hydraulic pressure or ballistic force. We had a thought of using 155 millimeter shells, basically blanks, and having them fire these massive spikes into the ground so that the vehicle would be basically planted, rooted anchored as best as it possibly could be, so that a tornado could just pass right over it and it wouldn't be able to flip the thing. Yeah, you'd get shaken up a bit, but you would not get flipped over by any stretch of the imagination.
Did your friend work with Reed Timmer at all? Because they actually just took a hit directly from a tornado last summer.
Oh yeah, no. The vehicles we've got today for storm chasing, there are a lot of the ideas that me and Kevin worked on in the past, but it's stuff that any logical thinker, if they took a look at the situation, they'd probably come to a lot of the same conclusions about what needs to be, what a vehicle like that would need to be made. We just happened to think of it first. We just didn't have the backing or the materials to get it done. And I see a kitty.
Yeah, that's the Fluffers. Say hi, Fluffer. Say good morning.
Ugh.
Kitty.
Fluffers has something in his eye, I think.
I don't let my cats in my bedroom. Last time I did, they decided to mark my bed.
Technically, I'm in their bedroom, bathroom, whatever.
You're in the rumpus room.
I'm in okay, this needs to move over. I need a little bit more room here now. So, okay, since we got some more people in here, let me bring up today's topic of the day. We're going to start doing the topic of the day. So, today's topic of the day is something that I saw that really, 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 really pissed me off.
Ooh. It should be spicy. Hit me.
if I was the parents, I would be suing the fucking school.
Ooh. I think I know what it is.
And
Please continue.
apparently, schools are letting voting registration people into the schools, telling kids how to fill out these voter registration cards, automatically registering them. They're pulling them out of class and taking them down and telling them to vote for Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've been hearing about that.
That should be fucking illegal. School is a place of learning, not a place of fucking pushing politics. The only politics they should be learning is in civics class or
yeah, I mean,
call it now.
In an ideal world, yes, but really, public schools are nothing more than government indoctrination centers. I swear, my generation was probably one of the last that got actual decent education. We didn't even have a civics class, though.
You were right behind me, weren't you?
Yeah. Remember, we're only about 5 years apart. I graduated in 99. I think you graduated in, what, 94?
96, yeah. Katie was born in 99.
All right, well.
So you've been out 25 years now. Congratulations.
But yeah, no, we didn't have a civics class. We got taught some civics because I had a very forward-thinking history teacher, and she was pretty adamant about us learning the basic concepts of civics and the American Constitution and, the founding principles of the country. I can almost guarantee that she was voting Democrat at the time, but to her credit, she basically gave party. Well, huge difference between Democrats 25 years ago and today. But what I'm saying is that she pretty much gave equal time to both sides of the argument when it came to politics. What do the Democrats generally represent? What do the Republicans generally represent? She listed a lot of, positive and negative traits about both parties, about how they represent things, about who they want to represent and how, and so on and so forth. So she was pretty even-handed, and I've got to give her credit for that.
Even though a lot of teachers were, they taught us under the guise of economics. That's where we got our civics thing from. But she was also the debate teacher.
Oh, well, there you go.
The debate coach. So we had, oh my God, we had some fucking wild debates, dude.
Oh, I can imagine.
Throwing chairs. Yeah, it got kind of wild. We had fun, though.
Oh, we never got that bad.
The only time she got mad at us was when if we broke something. She's like, just don't break shit. I'll try not to. Good morning, Jay.
I see you, pal. Good morning.
Yeah. What's going on, Jay?
I'm back.
So, just to repeat for Jay what we're talking about as the topic of the morning, because I'm sure he'll have something to say about this with him having kids in school right now.
Oh, yeah.
But the topic of the day, Jay, is we're seeing and hearing about, there's a video out by Modern Renaissance Man, Black Conservative Perspective has one out. Those are the two that I've seen. And they're pulling kids out of class, because they don't need to fucking learn anything, right? And they're registering them to vote Democrat and having them vote from the school. How would you feel if they did that with your kids, Jay? Or any of you? Thomas, Mike? Good morning, Cora.
Uh-oh, Cora's here.
Yeah, we better behave and stop talking bad about her.
You started it.
I always do. Do you think I was going to deny it? Cue the Dennis Leary song. He's an asshole.
Probably one of the
God,
greatest movies of the 1990s.
I
Seriously.
miss fucking funny shit like that.
I miss when
Comedy
this country
almost
could take a
died.
fucking joke. Oh, there goes the monetization on this stream.
No, they're never going to monetize me over here, bud. Never going to happen.
Nope.
But,
Mm.
just throwing this out there. Apparently, if you want to, you can go over and subscribe to me on Rumble and give me $5 a month. That'll go directly to the foundation. Just throwing
Does
it
the
out
word
there.
vivid cover it, Mike? Yeah. I'm not too happy either. My son is 23. Will be in December of this year. If I had found out that they were doing that with him and then basically threatening him, and if he didn't vote a certain way, he'd be punished. Oh.
Also, loose pal.
I would have been down at that school, me and Jen, and
Maybe.
we would have been mounting heads on walls. Even though it was California, we wouldn't care. We wouldn't care. We would throw down. We would throw, especially Jen.
Cal's
she would
going.
be,
Cal's
Go ahead.
going all fucking Vlad the Impaler.
oh no, Jen would have been the one doing most of the work. I just would have been behind her with the sharpened poles. Once she was done with them, I'd just, mount what's left of them to the pole and just kind of stake it out where everybody could see it. She was always way more rough and tumble and ready to throw down than I was. But
we need to get.
remember,
I think we need to start getting back to that. Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Tyson was right. A lot of people these days have been raised without the idea that they could get punched in the mouth.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes from him.
Oh yeah.
My other favorite quote from him is, "Remember, not everybody you fight is your enemy, and not everyone who helps you is your friend."
He may have taken a few shots to the head, but he's got some good sense to him.
I want to see him smack the fuck out of Jake Paul.
Oh yeah, I do too.
Unfortunately, I think they canceled it already.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. That was just bluster. I knew, from the moment it was announced that it was never actually going to happen. Mostly because Jake Paul is a freaking coward.
Well, Jake Paul's the thing that really killed it, honestly, was when Tyson put in the clause that he had to be tested for steroids before the fight.
Yeah.
And we all know that Jake Paul is not naturally that way.
Nope. He's had some performance enhancers. He should have gone Mark McGuire's route and used all natural steroids. Those don't show up as readily on those tests. Plus, for a charity fight like this, I don't think they'd pull out the really good kit.
Yeah, right.
But, he took the shortcut and he's going to have to pay the price. Whatever little he already had down there probably shrank another 2 inches.
So that's why I thought he had a little man syndrome.
Well, yeah, but right now he's got no man syndrome.
Woo!
So small. Remember that one from South Park? So small. So small. Yeah, it's going to be, he's going to have to deal with some shrinkage. He's also going to have to deal with some rage issues and a few other things. But speaking of internet personalities.
Oh, shit, I forgot my phone.
Well, you better go get it.
Sorry. That's right.
Go ahead. Speaking of internet personalities, I don't know if any of y'all have Mr. Beast on your radar.
He's about to get roasted hard and not good. He's going to go join Diddy.
Yeah, he's another one of those. He had 2 people that we know of in his employ. One of them was named Delaware, of all things.
Yep.
I think
registered.
Yeah, I do believe somebody else from that state is also in the news when he's awake enough. When he's awake enough. I don't even know if he thinks he comes from Delaware anymore. For all we know, he thinks he comes from the state of Corn Pop. But respect to the guy for actually living this long. I feel bad that he's being dragged around like this. He's a freaking corpse, and just let him die. Show him.
Said a weekend at Bernie's this weekend at the White House.
Yeah, just let the man die, for crying out loud. Just let him go to bed, and let nature take its course. I feel so bad the way that he's getting treated. That's elder abuse right there. But anyway, Mr. Beast has had two potential, as JD DeLay would say, pee-pee touchers in his employ. One of which he knew.
Candidates.
Yeah. One of which he knew about. And he even referred to him as Delaware because that's where all the crap took place. And the dude wore a freaking mask. And yeah, Mr. Beast knew what kind of a guy that was. And he had him around anyway. Why? I don't freaking know. I mean, I'm not going to accuse Mr. Beast of being one of them.
Because he's the brother-in-law of one of his producers. The Viking.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got that reason, but Mr. Beast could have just as easily said no. I mean, what was his?
Well, any normal person would have said no.
Well, yeah, any normal person, but when you get that kind of money, you stop being normal. Like 99% of people do. There's only a handful of people that haven't, and Trump is one of them. I mean, look at how much money he has, and he's still, pretty much one of us. He doesn't think in terms of a rich person. He thinks in terms of a regular person with a lot of money. In a lot of ways. But, he had Delaware on there. I mean, what does he see him as, a pet or something? A little bring out the gimp, have him on a chain and have him scare the kids. I don't freaking know. But he had him on there. And then he had this other person who has gender dysphoria. I'm going to be polite. About that one. If
he really does.
Yeah. But this person with gender dysphoria and who refers themselves as female was also caught doing wood chipper related activities. So he's had two of them, and he maybe Mr. Beast really is that detached from the nuts and bolts of his operation that he didn't know about the second one. But there's no way he didn't know about the first. When you get into the bushes, when you really get into what goes on in the production of a show like that, there's a lot of things that don't get seen depending upon where you physically are in the totem, where you are on the totem pole of the operation. So, maybe they didn't see the second one, but they sure as hell knew about the first. And then all of the other questionable activities around all the Mr. Beast stuff that's happened over the years, and the crap that was happening with the Mr. Beast burgers, and just all sorts of stuff. It's all starting to come to light now, and he's getting roasted for it. He's getting sued. There's lawsuits out there now. The lawyers smell blood in the water, and they're starting the feeding frenzy. They are circling his poor bleeding corpse, and there is a lot there to take a chunk out of. I think
I'll tell you why I don't believe that Chris Tyson is gender dysphoric. Because if you're gender dysphoric, you're not going to be on Discord bragging about the size of your dick. Because you see yourself as a woman and you don't want to have a dick, so you're not going to talk about it. Am I right?
Well, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I mean, in this modern day and age, we have to have a pronoun list for freaking zebras. So I'm not going to dive into the weeds of that one. I'm just going to recognize that it exists. It's just kind of like, okay, we will.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying gender dysphoria doesn't exist. Please don't think.
Oh yeah, no.
I understand that it does exist.
Yeah.
Blair White is a major example of that. But Blair White admits that she has a mental disorder and that she's not normal.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I respect them. Hey, was outside miss smoking. What did I miss? Well, why were you shooting at us? So why? And secondly, you need to aim better. Thomas says the more you brag, the less you have. We're talking about Mr. Beast and his wonderful crew of wood chipper candidates, as JD would say.
Massive respect to JD Delay, by the way. Massive respect. That man. He is bombastic, and he has all the right opinions about what to do with those kind of people.
Surprised he's still allowed on YouTube. Honestly,
I am too. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't canned him. You know, just because his takes are so off the wall. I think it's because he declares himself to be politically neutral. You know, they can't hit him for being, a trumpet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he stuck up for Trump too, but he stuck up for Biden at times too, when people were saying stupid shit that wasn't true. So
he's about the truth.
Yeah,
he's about the truth, and that's one of the reasons I respect him.
Regardless
of who's saying what, he wants the truth, and he wants only the truth to be spoken, at least as much as possible. Politicians going to politic. They're going to lie to us. They're going to piss on our heads and tell us it's raining. Take care, Jay. See you later.
Have a
buddy.
great day, Jay. Tell the kids to have a good day at school from us, please.
Yes, please.
Good morning, Mr. Dave. Mr. Dave made a funny comment on a post on Discord. It had a picture of aliens, and you're like on a table, and they're looking down at you. And the question was, what? You open your eyes to this. What are your first words? And he put, "Oh, thank God, just be gentle," I think is what he said.
I got to go back to my childhood here a little bit.
Okay.
And quote Bill Waterston, creator Calvin and Hobbes. The surest sign that intelligent life exists elsewhere is that none of it has ever tried to contact us.
Right.
There are days that go by where I swear that is the absolute truth. Hey, Dave. Good morning.
Is it The Far Side or Bizarro or one of those cartoons? There's a cartoon out there where it shows they shove stuff up a turkey's ass, and now they give a pumpkin a lobotomy. What's wrong with these people?
Or like the very first episode of South Park where the aliens identify cows as being the most intelligent creatures on the planet.
Yeah, even though they keep exploding them all.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but that was Dave.
Ow.
He's an intern.
Ow, man.
No, Jay and I were talking about the upcoming election last night. And I'm going to be careful about what I say here because we do have a presence on YouTube, and they're probably staring at us real hard because I said the E word. But
he said erection.
But we were discussing about possible paths forward. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thomas, what you said. Hey, yeah. Trump said he's going to go after the ones that were involved in the 2020 incident, including Google and Facebook and YouTube. And we already have smoking guns for that. They've come out and admitted, yes, there was election irregularities. But the stories usually get buried pretty quickly. Even Raffensperger down in Georgia admitted that there was problems. And then we found out the other day there were 74,000 plus votes in Michigan that got counted for Biden that had no proof that they actually existed, that weren't even mailed out. So, yeah, I agree. It's going to be a shit show. I've gamed out using 270 to win their very helpful election map. I've gamed out a couple of possible scenarios, and I'm going to be honest. Realistically speaking, with all of the potential irregularities that may come up, including Pennsylvania saying it may take weeks to decide how many votes they need to put in to make sure that their state goes a certain way. I see Trump winning, but I see him getting exactly 270 electoral votes. The problem then becomes, are we going to have faithless electors? I think that's going to be a real issue. I see Trump getting exactly 270. I don't see him doing the blowout that we all hope for. And then I see what's going to happen is that the various powers that be, call them whatever you want, there's more than one group of them, they are going to come in and try and pressure, because they only need to flip one in order to make it a tie, and then it goes to Congress, and we all know which way Congress is going to vote. It's not going to be for Trump. They're going to pressure at least one elector to vote against what they should. And when they do that, they're going to push it to 269 to 269. If they can flip two of them, then Trump loses. They're not going to let him take power. They may let him have the election at exactly 270 votes. So there are a couple of ways they could get that done. But they'll set that up, and then I have a feeling they're going to go after the electors. They're going to have at least one or two faithless electors. One would push the vote to Congress because it'll be 269 to 269. And at that point, Congress is going to vote for Harris. At least the majority of them will. We may end up with Harris as president and Vance as VP, but I do not see it happening as Trump as president and Waltz as VP, or getting both of Trump and Vance in. Honestly, if Vance does accept the VP post and then kind of flips around and becomes surprisingly moderate, surprisingly fast, then we know what side he was on all along. But I don't see them allowing Trump to have power. And even if they can't flip the electors, let's say that they manage, the electors stand strong, and they all say, we're going to vote for Trump. We're going to give him exactly his 270 electoral votes. Then the media comes in and says, Trump didn't get a mandate, blah, 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 blah. He just barely made it to 270 electoral votes. That shows that half the country doesn't actually believe in him. And they're going to start hammering us with that. The fact that George Soros, or I should say Alexander Soros, just recently got control, thanks to the FCC, of 220 radio stations. This was fast-tracked. This has never been done before. The FCC fast-tracked Soros's acquisition of 220 radio stations around the United States. That's a very, very large number. So they're going to be pumping out pro-administration propaganda 24/7 as soon as the new ownership takes over. And they're going to start hammering us with, Trump didn't get his mandate, blah, blah, blah. Even though I'm pretty sure down ticket, there's going to be greater amount of Republican control of Congress. We're going to probably flip a couple of seats here, gain some ground there, and just be a little bit here and there. And even with that, because even when Trump lost, there was a lot of down ticket movement towards the Republican Party. Granted, not all of them are Freedom Caucus, MAGA, types, but there were, we got some Republicans in there. Hell, Mitch McConnell won again.
The turtle.
Cocaine Turtle Mitch. I've got a lot of respect for that guy for managing to stay alive so long on his habits. Yes, that was left-handed compliment, very much. But no, I see that, he gets his 270. There's going to be a massive push by the media to say that Trump didn't get his mandate. They're going to downplay his victory as, just an insane amount. And then it's going to come down to Congress actually voting to approve everything. And then you're going to see a real shit show. That if he manages to keep his 270 electoral votes, we don't get faithless electors, and he gets exactly 270, it's going to come down to Congress, voting to approve things. And they just recently passed a rule after the last election stating that the vice president wasn't allowed to object to the vote. Watch them ignore that. Watch them ignore that. If things actually get to that point, watch them completely ignore that. Oh, no. Kamala Harris can do it because it's different. And she starts, bitching and moaning and kvetching. Maybe we get some second slate electors, and she'll try to approve those. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But that's their second to last move to keep Trump out of office, is right there in Congress, which is what Trump was hoping would happen in 2020. And then, Pence backstabbed him. We had, the riots and the stuff that happened on that day. And then they used that as an excuse to just push the approval of the election forward. Pelosi actually masterminded that. She used a not very well known House rule stating that in the event of an emergency, they can just go ahead and push that through without debating anything, which is exactly what happened. And unfortunately, the feckless Republicans just went along with it, because half of them are just Democrats in sheep's clothing.
Pretty much.
So, oh my God, you're just covered in, well, I'm not going to say it, cats.
You might as well say it. Mike says it all the time.
Well, I'm not Mike. My mommy raised me to be, I'm not going to say she raised me to be too polite. But
this
she raised
one
me.
This is Tangerine.
Tangerine.
This one's Tiny. She's not so tiny anymore. And this one's Fluffers. This is my puppy.
They're cute, and they all want your attention.
They all just want a dry place to lay right now. It's raining on me.
Yeah. But yeah, so, I mean, even if they get all the way to January 6, 2025, and let's say by some miracle that manages to go through. Trump manages to get his 270. It gets approved by Congress by some miracle, probably after many, many hours of debate and browbeating and some backroom deals that shouldn't have to happen but will anyway, because we all know that stuff is just dirtier than swamp water. But, now we get up to January 20th. We have the 14 days between the 6th and the 20th when the inauguration happens. The hell they going to do then? They could, they've got 2 weeks to stop Trump from taking office. A lot can happen. And this is saying that we survived this far without them, pulling a Clear and Present Danger. If anybody remembers that movie.
Yeah, I was thinking they'd try and do their own Operation Valkyrie.
Well, with Clear and Present Danger, just recently, now this may again be nothing, but Congress recently started, trying to get some rules in place for what would happen if a large number of Congress people were lost in a mass casualty event.
What are they wondering? What are they waiting? Are they expecting something to come from Russia with love?
Well, it wouldn't come from Russia. I can almost guarantee it. Putin is not, as much crap as everybody gives Putin, he's a smart businessman. He's not going to drop a nuke on the United States without getting nuked first. Now, whether that happens, I don't know, but Putin is not going to strike first because he knows that even as fucked up as America is right now, we have response options. Our allies have response options. And he's going to get his shit pushed in so far. He's going to be tasting what he ate for dinner last week. It's going to happen. And he doesn't really have, I mean, he can defend Moscow, but he can't defend really anything else. And that's even providing that the nuclear defense network that's around Moscow is still in full operation. We don't know. And it was a really good defensive network. I mean, that was just some incredible stuff that they gamed up to protect Moscow from nuclear strikes. But yeah, I don't see him. And not only that, but cutting off the head of the U.S. government, generally not a smart move if you're trying to get the country to surrender or just stop whatever the fuck it's doing. That's literally the worst thing you can do to the United States is to Duke Washington, D.C. especially with most of Congress sitting in there, because even with all the crap that's happening in our country, the very next thing that's going to happen, of course, is Russia again is going to get its shit pushed in all the way up to its mouth. It will happen. You nuke Washington, D.C., watch us come together again. We're not even going to give a shit how dirty our leaders are, just as long as we can get our revenge. So Putin is not going to strike first. He's not that stupid. He is smart enough to have seen what happens when you try to kick America in the balls. It's one of those things. If you want to come for the king, you better kill the king. Otherwise, the king is going to come right back at you. And even again, with all the crap happening in our country, we are still very, very capable of pushing Russia's shit in all the way up to its mouth. And it will happen. So Putin is not going to strike first. And hell, eliminating Congress, eliminating all those bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., that would be a gift to the American people. Because a lot of the people that are in charge of a lot of the dirtiest aspects of our lives, the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, they're probably going to get vaporized. A lot of them are going to get declared sacrificial pawns. And then they'll just, and then when that happens, a lot of the secret networks around the United States are going to start breaking down. You're going to have a lot of infighting. There's going to be a lot of crap that happens if that happens. So Putin isn't going to do that. That's not smart, because then he won't be able to stop America, because there will be nobody to negotiate with. There will just be a series of military leaders of various dubious quality, all trying to basically carve Russia up like a dead bear. And again, that will happen because we have done it before, and we will do it again. That is just how America rolls. We will kill you in your sleep on Christmas. As we've done it before.
Jamie.
Hey, Jamie. But anyway, so that means that if something does happen of that nature, it won't be Russia doing it. They may be the ones blamed for it, but it won't actually be them. It'll be somebody else. And honestly, at this point, it could be anybody that can get their hands on an ex-Russian nuclear warhead. I hate to say it, no offense to our Russian friends over there, but the period between 1991 and about 2004 or so, they had some really shit nuclear security. And they have admitted that there's up to 10,000 warheads of various size, from really little ones to kind of big ones, that have gone missing. Some of them they've recovered, some of them they realized were decommissioned, and they can account for a lot of them, but there's still some that are missing. And the thing is those things don't really have an expiry date, at least not an expiry date that is measured in human years. You get your hands on the fissile material, it doesn't take very much to make a gun-type nuclear device, even if you have to strip the thing apart. All you really need is the refined fissile material. I'm not going to go into exactly how, because that would be illegal. But once you get your hands on the fissile material, it doesn't take much to make it work. And especially so if you get your hands on the very core of an implosion device, because those things are very well put together. And it just takes, basic electrical engineering skills at that point to make it work. And you can get yourself like a good 20 kilotons, and that's more than enough to take out downtown DC. Keeping in mind 20 kilotons is about what we dropped on Nagasaki, I believe. That's not a firecracker. That's something pretty damn serious. So, anybody could do it, and it's a matter of, did the various people who kind of have friends in DC do it, or was it an outside actor they just allowed to do it? We're going to be debating that literally for the rest of time if that comes to pass. But nuking Washington, D.C., I would not put it past them. I honestly wouldn't. And oh my God, the FBI is going to be all over me for this. I know they are. I'm probably going to get a visit in a week. I don't care. I'll sit on my porch and talk to them, and probably mock them too. Hi, FBI. I love you.
You're going to pull the libertarian guy?
I'll be nice. I'll offer them coffee.
I love that video.
Yeah, well, he was pretty on target with that. Just I hope if they come, they're actually going to wear business suits and not look like they just crawled out of a milsurp dumpster. show me some damn respect. Come to me wearing a suit, you know, make it look official, not like you're a couple of hobos from
You come
some
here to
COD
my
convention.
house and you dress like a fucking bum.
Yeah. Don't come to my house dressed like a bum. Or, you know, a COD cosplayer that just kind of picked whatever random milsurp they could find on Amazon. Show me a little respect if you're going to come to me that way. Show me a little respect. Come in a nice suit and greet me as though I'm actually a human being, even though you probably don't think I am. Whatever. But honestly, if they went that far and they did something that insane, I would not be surprised. I really wouldn't. They hate Trump that much, and they drink their own Kool-Aid regularly. Somebody pulling the trigger on something like that, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And then, you know, there's going to be no Congress to verify that Trump won. You know, they could go that way, or they could say, you know, DC's gone. We can't really run the country. But mysteriously enough, Kamala Harris survived. Oh, you know what? We can't have the inauguration now. We're supposed to have this transfer of power. We can't do it. National emergency. You know, Washington, D.C. is just a crater. So Kamala Harris is going to run the country as assumptive president, or there's a technical term for it that I forget right now. But she will be
capital of the country.
President.
Acting
president. Acting president. That's the term. She will be acting president of the United States until we can organize, you know, getting Congress back together. And of course, there's going to be massive cheating at that point. You know, they're going to try and rig every single congressional election to replace all the electors or all the congresspersons that mysteriously died in D.C. And then they're all going to mysteriously vote and say, oh, yeah, the last election was obviously rigged by our enemies to put this horrible person into office that's basically mustache man. And, you know, they'll just invalidate the previous election, and then we get Kamala Harris for 8 years. Or however long, because, you know, they could just say, you know, it could take them 2 years just to get a Congress back, and during that time she's acting president, and then they're going to say, oh, well, no, we're going to have another election. And by the way, Trump can't run again because we're going to pass a rule preventing anybody from felony convictions from running for office, which, of course, is going to target Trump. And without Trump being on the ticket, I don't see whoever's on that ticket winning. I mean, it could be Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy. And they're not going to be able to pull it off. They don't have Trump's energy, and they won't have the years necessary to be anointed as the true successor to the MAGA movement. And you know, this is still assuming that Ramaswamy is actually on our side and isn't actually a snake. I still don't trust him. Yes, he talks a good talk, but I haven't seen him do anything. Not really.
Or anyway. Says he needs to go back to Ohio and run for governor and prove himself that way.
That'd be nice, you know, if he got himself an elected office and actually did something with it, something proper. Ohio, yeah, that's a good one. Pennsylvania, that'd be another good one.
Well, he's originally from Ohio, so.
I'm just saying, you know, there's a few states out there that he could pick if he wanted to, you know,
I would
really
rather
improve.
I would rather we find somebody that actually grew up here and lived here instead of trying to keep importing people from out of state to run for office here. Because, I mean, we've had that the last couple of years now. Now they have McCormick, who's from here, but he actually moved up to Connecticut and has lived in Connecticut for the last couple of years, and now supposedly he moved back to run for office again. So that's kind of bugs me.
I get the desire to have a local person as your governor, but at the same time, I would just as readily accept somebody who says, you know, I want to make this state the best state in the union, and I'm going to do absolutely everything in my power to make that happen, and then does it. That's the important thing, that they actually pull through with what they're going to say. At that point, they can come from freaking Mars for all I care, as long as they actually go through with it and improve the state that they become the governor of. Yes, having somebody local is nice, but having somebody that can actually get the job done, to me, that's way more important. Because if all the local guys that are stepping up are a bunch of mongs, a bunch of idiots, then you're picking the smartest idiot of the bunch. If somebody comes in from Vermont or upper New York State that's a solid Republican, and that's the party that you particularly want to vote for, and they're like, you know what, I may not be from this state exactly, but I know enough about it to know that we can get things done. We can do this. Oh, you know what? A trained monkey could do a better job than DeWiner. I'm sorry, Corey. You got saddled with a horrible, 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 horrible governor. There's a few that are worse, but he's
Did
pretty bad.
Did you see what my governor was doing yesterday, or the day before? I mean,
Shapiro.
Yeah.
I might have, but I'm
Hanging out-
probably
hanging out with fucking Zelensky up in Scranton.
Oh,
signing
yeah.
the show. Fucking warmongering piece of shit.
Trump is right. Zelensky is the best salesman on the planet. Every time he comes here, he gets another $60 billion. And honestly, if Zelensky was stumping for Harris, that's a campaign law violation right there, I believe. Should be an impeachable offense. But of course, nothing's going to happen because it's different.
I don't think she was involved, but I don't know. I don't know what was there.
Well, still, and I don't have a lot of respect for Zelensky either. I mean, I don't want to pick
Anyone
sides.
who would dress the way he did and shake his balls in front of somebody's face in a camera like that has no respect for themselves.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of respect for Zelensky. I respect Putin because, generally speaking, he's a man of his word. When he says he's going to do something, he's going to do his best to do it. Zelensky, on the other hand, is a liar, a cheat, and a thief. As far as the war in Ukraine goes, I don't really have a side that I want to pick because
I just want it to end. That's it.
It needs to end. It should never have started in the first place. But
no, it wouldn't have started if Biden would have shut his fucking mouth and actually just let diplomacy take place instead of sitting there running his mouth and saying, "Oh, well, we're going to stop them," and bumble. There was nothing to stop at that point.
Actually, Biden isn't even really at fault. You know who's at fault? It's Clinton, Bill Clinton. Why? After the Soviet Union fell, there was a significant amount of nuclear weapons in the Ukraine that were pointed towards NATO. Clinton basically threw the Ukraine over a barrel with Yeltsin at the time and said, "You're going to remove those nuclear weapons. Now, in exchange, you shouldn't have anything to worry about from Russia, right? You guys are all on the same side nominally, right? So we'll guarantee your independence, not that you have anything to worry about, right?" The war wouldn't have happened, period, if Zelensky or whomever, if the Ukraine had still had nuclear weapons. Because the second that the Russians invaded and pushed as far as Kiev, which they did, pretty quickly, Ukraine would have just launched nukes, and that would have been it. It would have been a minor nuclear exchange. The Ukraine would have been flattened. We would have, Russia would have lost some cities, but Putin in the first place wouldn't have invaded if the Ukraine had nuclear weapons. It just wouldn't have happened.
I heard a really interesting story about Putin and Bill Clinton having a nice meeting back when all this shit happened, and the Soviet Union fell, and or it was Yeltsin. I'm sorry, not Putin. Yeltsin.
About to say, yeah, it was Yeltsin.
And Yeltsin wanted to join NATO.
Yeah.
And Clinton said yes at first. He said, "I'm sure that can be arranged." But then the people who are really in charge behind the scenes told him, "No, we can't sell weapons to fight Russia with NATO if we let them join NATO."
Yeah.
It's what the hell?
I'm about to say your fire went out. Come on, baby, light my fire.
Where the hell did I put the damn? I'm sorry, Tinge. We got to get up, buddy.
Got to relight that sucker. But yeah, I heard about that. And the swamp creatures that really run the show, they need Russia as an enemy because they're, the only real large power block that they could have in opposition.
Other than China, and back then China didn't have the nuclear weapon arsenal to
they did.
match us.
They did. China's had nuclear weapons since the 50s. They developed them a few years behind the Soviet Union. But the thing is, and we have to thank Nixon for this one. I know there are people here who don't particularly care for him. Nixon going to China made it so that China couldn't ever be seen as an opposition. As much damage as it has done to the country, at the same time, China has always kind of had to somewhat be our friend because of Nixon's overtures. Nixon nipped in the bud a possible three-way power struggle. Yes, the three-way power struggle is still there, but China is still kind of pushed over in with us. And as much rhetoric as the current leader of China is putting against the West, at the same time, we're so commercially connected to China that certain things just aren't going to happen. China is never going to be the adversary that the Soviet Union was. And even Hollywood recognized this when they made the first Red Dawn movie. They more than insinuated, they directly stated that the Soviet Union, in that film's timeline, decided to drop weapons on China and eliminate something like 400 million people. And China at that point was like, fuck it, we ball. And they went all in against the Soviet Union. Which is, there's two takes on the Cold War going hot. One is China decides to join the Soviet Union and maybe get some territory in the United States. Or the other one is the Soviet Union decides to try and eliminate China to prevent them from joining the war for the United States. Depending upon different realities. The other one,
imagine China and us or China and Russia and us actually being allies. We could.
Oh yeah.
It could
And
be a
honestly,
good thing or it could be a horrible thing.
Yeah, well, we'd probably end up in a kind of a similar situation that we're in today. Russia having cheaper labor than the United States could have started importing Russian-made goods to the U.S. The same way that we've gotten a lot of stuff from China, just not quite at the same level of, let's say, Chinesium quality. I would trust Russian quality over Chinese quality. Even the cheapest, drunkest Russian factory worker still takes more pride in what they're making than a 5-year-old Chinese boy who this is part of his kindergarten's physical education class is being able to make stitches and not stab his fingers on the automatic sewing machine that has zero safeties.
Hey. I almost lost part of my thumb on an automatic sewing machine.
So you feel their pain. But no, it was always going to be, ever since the Cold War started, and ever since Russia and China arose as powers in the Cold War, it was always going to be the U.S. kind of plus one of them versus the other. That was always how it was going to be. The thing is the reason why it ended up being Russia over China is, first of all, China took a little bit longer to really get organized. They weren't ready for full takeover of Chinese territory until the 50s. And if you look at the history of the Civil War in China during that time,
it was brutal.
Oh, not only was it brutal, it was very strange. The nationalists actually controlled a very large amount of China in 1949. And then the one thing that was really keeping them going, U.S. aid, mysteriously stopped. And the communists were just kind of allowed to take over. A lot of nationalist generals started surrendering to the Chinese communists. There was a lot of dirty shit going on. And Chiang Kai-shek basically got abandoned by the United States because we didn't want to, get involved in that. Because the last time we tried to get involved in a communist civil war was in Russia in the 1920s. We actually sent troops over, and it didn't turn out so well. And there were a lot of reasons behind it, but it put a fear into the American chain of command that if we continue to support nationalist China in any way, shape, or form, we could get dragged into it. They didn't want any part of that because we'd just gotten out of a war. We got out of basically the worst war in American history up to that point. And we did not want to get troops on the ground in China. And lo and behold, not even a year or so later, we had troops on the ground in Korea because the North Korean government decided they wanted to take over South Korea. And interesting note, the only reason why Taiwan exists is because North Korea decided to get jumpy exactly when it did. There was a roughly corpse-sized formation of troops that have been specially trained to go by boat from mainland China to Taiwan and take it over. That specially trained elite corps was then used by communist China to reinforce North Korean positions during the Korean War. And a very large number of them got killed by NATO forces. Well, I should say alliance forces. It wasn't strictly NATO over there. And so much of this unit had been destroyed that when the cessation of hostilities kicked in, China found itself in a position where they didn't have the troops necessary to take over Taiwan, and Taiwan had something like 18 months, 2 years to fortify the island. So they were now prepared for an invasion, and China was not prepared to make the invasion. So they called it off.
That's interesting.
They called it off. It's the only reason that,
sorry, go ahead.
It's the only reason that Taiwan exists today is because all the troops that have been specially trained to take the island had been expended in the Korean War. Not all of them, not 100%, but something like 60 to 70% of the unit had become casualties, either dead or wounded out of action. They weren't going to fight again. But that unit that China had, that Mao had basically set aside specifically for invading Taiwan, which at that point was pretty much the last bastion of nationalist resistance, they had plans to get literally boats from everywhere in China. It didn't even matter if they were proper made landing craft. The plan was to just get as many of boats as they possibly could and just shoot them across the strait. And they were predicting something like 20% casualties just trying to get across the strait, just from boats that would end up sinking or capsizing or whatever. They knew going in that they were going to take casualties just getting across the strait. And then they would probably take another 10% casualties just getting off the beaches. So they were already looking at being down 30% manpower by the time they moved inland. This was the Chinese plan. So they needed 100% of that force to overcome the remaining defenders on the island of Taiwan. They needed literally every soldier. They could not sustain more than, I think, 15% casualties before the operation would have just been, a complete non-starter. In military tactics, it's said that you need at least a 3-to-1 advantage over a defender in order to have a chance of overcoming a defensive position, depending upon how well entrenched it is. There are a lot of factors that go into it, but the usual 3-to-1 rule is what you start off with. That's your rule of thumb, and then you just kind of adjust it to fit the situation. Given the amount of defenders on the island of Taiwan, plus the civilian population that would have likely taken up arms against them and made it just an absolute slaughter, they could not have lost more than 15% of that force before initiating the operation. And they lost something like 60% of it in the Korean War. So by the time the Korean War ended, they had a shattered unit that was their most elite troops, that was the best they could get their hands on, that were specially trained to carry out this operation. And they pivot over to Taiwan. Taiwan has fortified the island. Now they're looking at taking maybe 20% casualties just getting off the beaches, plus 20% casualties just getting to the island in the first place, meaning they would have needed a larger force than the one that they had originally had set up and trained and was ready by 1952. So, they were already, behind the 8 ball, and Mao just took one look at this and he's like, not even I'm that stupid. I'm not gonna make the attempt because we're gonna fail, and if we fail, we lose face, and if we lose face, we just barely got these generals in line and their troops. They have not been a part of the regime for too long. There's a very real chance that I, the great Mao Zedong, could suddenly find myself replaced by somebody who's a little more not as communist, or a little more moderate, a little more sectarian, or secular. And that was Mao's greatest fear. It was always one of Mao's greatest fears, is that one of his generals, or one of his core leadership would try to replace him. And if he failed the Taiwan operation spectacularly, that's most likely what would have happened. So he was like, forget it. Just forget it. We'll deal with them later. We'll try to politically subvert them. We'll do all this other crap, and we'll just try to isolate them. And they succeeded in doing so when Communist China was recognized as the true successor state to Chiang Kai-shek's government during World War II, and they got their place on the UN Security Council. That was the start of isolating Taiwan, making it a non-country, making it so that people don't fully recognize Taiwan as an independent nation. I'm not going to jump into whether it is or not. I'm just saying that this is what they did, and they were pretty successful. I mean, right now it's if this stream was in China at all, we would have already been shut down, and I would have had a visit from the People's Armed Police asking me, why am I talking about this non-country? Why am I talking about this piddly little island over here that doesn't actually, the people there don't exist? Why am I speaking about this? You can't say it. And you go on YouTube, and if this was a true video, there's a very good chance that it get flagged or taken down. Why? Because I'm discussing China. I'm discussing China and Taiwan, and the Chinese don't like that. They really don't. That eyesore is their failure in their eyes, and they do not want to recognize that they failed to fully secure all of China. And like I said, the Korean War is the only reason why Taiwan exists. If the Korean War had never happened, then Taiwan would have been invaded on time in about late 52, early to mid 53, and they would have been overrun. It would have been a squash match, because the Chinese would have had a superior number of bodies to throw at the relatively disorganized defenders of the island. And pretty much the same thing would have happened on Taiwan as happened on mainland China during the previous 18 months, is that there would have been nationalist generals that would have smelled which way the tide was turning, and they wanted to be on the side that was coming in, not the side that was going out. So they would have defected, and they would have taken their units with them. There would have been a lot of surrenders. There probably would have been some massacres that we would never hear about, just whole villages wiped off the face of the earth. Tainan or Taipei probably would have suffered significant damage. And it would have been an absolute fuckfest. But it would have happened. And then all of China would have been under communist rule. So the Taiwanese have Kim's grandfather to thank for their existence. Because if Kim's grandfather hadn't decided, fuck it, we're going to take South Korea because they are inferior to us, and then got his shit pushed in, it wouldn't have happened. And well, Thomas is right. Russia does make some good radios. I've got a friend that's into Milsurp, and he loves Russian radios. He's got one, and he's trying to get his hands on another one. I don't remember what they are. He showed me a picture once, but I don't retain 100% of the information presented to me, which is your proof that I'm not a robot. Hello, Andrea. Nice to see you. I just went over some history about why Taiwan exists and is not part of the People's Republic of China. So you just missed a history lesson. But as I was saying originally, it was always from the start of the Cold War going to be two powers kind of ganging up on a third. If Stalin hadn't been a dick, and China had been, still allowed to go communist, maybe not under Mao, but under somebody else, it very well could have been, the United States and China having a kind of a different look on things. And it could have been the U.S. and Russia against communist China, in the same kind of dichotomy that we had with the U.S. and communist China against Russia. You got to realize they've had long-standing border disputes stretching back to the 19th century. They've tried to work them out. They've signed some treaties. They've tried to keep things relatively peaceful. But during the Cold War, there was always a significant risk that China and Russia just simply wouldn't get along, and they might come to blows. They signed some treaties and stuff, but ever since China basically left the Russian sphere of influence, there was always a risk that China and Russia would go to war, and both countries recognized that. Even though they had basically, technically, the same political systems, they were not allied at all. They had their differences. Russia has always had very weak power in the Pacific, despite having some pretty big cities over there, Vladivostok, and then for a while Port Arthur, and so on. But they've always been especially weak in the Pacific. That has always been their weak spot, because their Pacific holdings are right at the edge of what they refer to as basically a wilderness. Not just Siberia. That refers to a very specific geographic area, but that whole area between about the middle of the country to all the way to the Pacific coast is considered wilderness. And that is a huge amount of territory with barely any people in it at all. There's a couple of small-sized cities, but it would be like if you took, say, West Virginia, not even West Virginia, but like Wyoming, and stretched Wyoming to cover everything from the Canadian border down to the Texas border, all the way to the Mississippi River, and all the way to California, right to the California coast. And you took just the population of Wyoming and stretched it over that massive area, just to give you an idea of the scale of this land in comparison to, say, the United States. But to Russia, that's all frontier. That's all frontier. To them, that's as foreign to them as like British Columbia is to the United States, part of another country. And that is just, so foreign to us. But you ask the average American, what's in British Columbia? They're going to probably say pine trees. And pretty much that's what it is there. It's all, forest. It's hardly settled. It's hardly tapped. There's loads and loads of untapped resources out there that Russia had for years during the Soviet era tried to get something going out there. But the place is just so far out in the boonies that, they had problems.
Sad that when you said British, when somebody what they think of British Columbia, I didn't think pine trees, but I thought druggies, but they've got a really rampant drug problem up there, kind of like Portland down here.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I've got a friend that lives up there. But yeah, that whole area is frontier to the Russian mindset. And I'm talking culturally, the entire Russian people, to them, that's all wilderness. Going right up to the Pacific Ocean, it's all wilderness. So Russia has never really had the ability to support their Pacific holdings the way that they've wanted to from Moscow. And there were pushes. That's why they ended up in so much trouble during the Japanese-Russian War in the early 1900s. That's why they got their shit pushed in. It's because they just could not invest in the Pacific holdings like they wanted to. And they had to send a fleet around from eastern Russia all the way around South Africa and all the way to the Pacific. And this was, supposedly their best ships. From a naval historian standpoint, they were decent units. There just weren't enough of them. Russia has never been a significant naval power. And they had the ability to be one with their Pacific holdings, but they've never been able to invest in the infrastructure necessary to make that happen. So Russia's Pacific side and that whole side of Russia has always been a vulnerable point to them. They want to tap those resources, but they can't. They want to have more control of that area, but they can't. And the problems that they've had, yeah, exactly, Cora. the problems that they've had securing that has always been a sticking point to them. That's why they're so sensitive about China, is because China has population centers fairly close to the border with that huge expanse of Russia. And realistically speaking, if the Chinese military, if they had their shit together, let's say they do, but let's say they decide we want all those pine trees for ourselves, they could push a military force of significant size. They could overrun Vladivostok very easily. They could take everything. They could split that area in half. Because Russia has some pretty decent-sized military bases on the Kamchatka Peninsula, but that's a pretty far distance away. And the only way they could get those troops from the Kamchatka Peninsula all the way over to the interior of Russia's deep west, is if they flew by plane. And if they tried to go overland, it would take them forever to get there. So Russia has always been in a vulnerable. Their vulnerable butt has always been resting right on top of China's unvulnerable shoulders. In a physical sense, Russia has always been under threat from China. If China wanted to make cross-border incursions over there, they could very easily. That's why Russia depended so much on its constituent minor republics to kind of hold the border with China. This is why all those little constituent republics, Russia, even after the fall of the Soviet Union, was very eager to keep not just under its sphere of influence, but under its control as much as it could. And Turkmenistan, although people don't talk about it, it's probably one of the craziest nations on earth. If you think the cult of personality in North Korea is bad, it's absolutely insane in Turkmenistan. We're talking just delusional levels of insanity, stuff right out of a comic book. But them having declared themselves as quote unquote eternally neutral, and really not maintaining much of an armed force and a whole bunch of other things. When they did that, they threw a massive wrench in Russia's gears, and Turkmenistan had been significantly neglected by the Soviet Union for a long time, which led to them basically saying, screw you, Russia. We don't want anything to do with you. We don't want anything to do with anybody, in fact. We're just going to kind of keep to ourselves. Maybe we export some of our delicious cotton. Maybe we don't. Maybe we have some trade with the West. Maybe we don't. We don't care. We don't care. We're just going to turn ourselves into a black hole, which is kind of what happened. But the smaller constituent republics that exist over there, most especially Kazakhstan, which is where Russia's space agency has actually got their launch facility, they were kind of given more or less the responsibility of watching the border with China. And Russia, when it was still, the Soviet Union still existed, Russia basically told the Kazakh SSR, you've got to watch that border. You got to keep an eye on them. We can't have any cross-border incursions with China. And to their credit, the Kazakhs basically agreed with them because they've been done dirty by China in antiquity, so they already had an axe to grind with them. Or as we used to say on 4chan, Tengri is pleased, referring to various Kazakh victories over anybody. Because they worship a deity called Tengri, or at least they did in antiquity. Go look that one up sometime. But Russia's always been vulnerable over there. So they've always been very on edge when it comes to China. So back to it. When Nixon started making overtures towards China, that made Russia very, very nervous. Because now they saw, if the Chinese and the United States work together in any major way, not only is their butt end vulnerable, but they now have a potential legitimate enemy, not just somebody who has a non-aggression pact, but somebody who could get aggressive with them, right facing their brown eye. They are in a perfect position to push right up through the wilderness and take Russia from the rear, literally from the rear. Anything from the Urals to the west or east, depending upon which way you're looking at the map. But on the European side of the Ural Mountains, that is the core of Russia to them culturally. And then somewhat just beyond the Urals as well. But anything way past that, going towards the Pacific, to them, that's all wilderness. That's frontier. They even have a special term for it that they use for the political divisions in that area. So they were looking at a potential truly hostile nation right at their butt. That made them very nervous. It always has. Even after the Soviet Union was, I guess you could say, defeated in the Cold War. We outspent them. We beat them with the U.S. dollar. It's as much of a weapon as an M16. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, they still had this problem. China was like, you guys have collapsed. You don't really have anything to offer us right now. We're just going to go and, do our own thing. We want to improve our country. We want to take it from being basically the slave driver or the slave laborers of the West to we want to be, seen as a truly legitimate nation, economic power and so forth. And to China's credit, during the late 90s, early to mid 2000s, they worked very hard to increase their economic prowess, and they did for a long time. The whole China-India thing, it's not a worry. It really isn't. That's more of an honor thing. China doesn't really want to deal with India. Yeah, they make an issue over the little tiny, 1 meter of border here, 2 meters of border there, a couple of rocks, a valley, and a river. They make an issue of it, but that's more dick waving than anything. That's not a serious. Yes, China would like to have that territory up to what they claim and probably beyond, but they're realistic. They're realistic enough to know that they can't actually take it, and they know that
India and Pakistan would be more of a war than India and China.
Yeah. India and China, they're going to trade, fist fights, martial arts fights. They won't ever trade bullets because they don't allow their border troops in that area to be armed with actual firearms. But yeah, they're going to get into fist fights. They're going to get into, everybody was kung fu fighting. I think you're going to see a hell of a lot of that.
Somebody needs to get that shit on video.
And then, both sides are going to make glorious movies about how, one soldier on, that side for this particular skirmish was the chosen one. And basically, went Luke Skywalker on the other side's asses. And they're both going to have competing movies depicting, whatever little skirmish events happen.
Just because Bruce Lee, one's going to have Kung Fu Panda.
Well, it's if you've ever seen a Bollywood film, those things can get just completely off the walls. So yeah, you're going to have some. Hi, Dave. You're going to have some kind of a Bollywood film where you've got this slightly chubby, overweight Indian soldier who just goes absolutely tiger style and throws his farts 50 meters and knocks 10 Chinese soldiers right off a cliff. It's going to be completely ballsy and off the wall.
You
and
have a thing for asses today. It's great.
Well, just today's an assy day. You started it by singing asshole, so but that's what it's going to be between China and India. That's always what it's going to be until or unless China can secure even more power. They're not going to make a try at India until they deal with Taiwan and until they deal with Russia. India is going to be absolutely last on their list because China is realistic enough to know that their populations are roughly equal, or at least close enough that if they wanted to start a real war with India, they're going to have one hell of a fight on their hands. Not only do they have to chop their way through every single Indian that exists, they're also going to have to deal with the fact that India's friends are going to come to India. They're not necessarily going to come to India's rescue, but they're sure as hell going to go fight against the Chinese. Hell, even the Pakistanis might fight against the Chinese if they feel threatened enough, or if they get insulted enough. Bangladeshis probably will. Or
they think they can take land from China after they're defeated.
Yeah. They're all basically going to rise up. And then, of course, you have to deal with the fact that India has nuclear weapons. They know how to use them. And they've got good delivery systems for them. Granted, they don't have long-range missiles, but they don't need them. What they have are essentially tactical nuclear weapons. And that is exactly what they need to fight China. Because if China decides to come over, they don't want to go bombing Chinese cities. That's not the point. What they want to do is erase massive formations of Chinese troops. And they can do that with the weapons and delivery systems that they have, which is, it's the perfect counter to, okay, China sends, 10 divisions. 10 divisions. That's close to 1 million troops. Call it 1 million. All right, well, the divisions are going to be moving more or less in formation, and they're going to be moving in chunks because that's how Chinese command and control works. We'll take one of our 5 kiloton or 10 kiloton nuclear warheads, load it onto one of our F-16s, and we'll just go and find one of those formations, and there goes, 5,000 to 8,000 troops in just one bright flash. And then the Chinese will have to deal with sending in people to rescue the ones that are maligned and not dead. They're going to have to clean the area up. They're going to have to scrape the area out so they can send troops through there. So India would effectively deny a route leading to them. They would inflict 10% casualties on the invading force, and they would do it for an incredibly small risk. This is why China is never going to really pick a real fight with India. I mean, the global geopolitical situation would have to be radically different for that. They will always have their adversarial, dislike for each other. They will squabble over the border, and both sides will probably use that border as a sticking point, especially in elections. You're going to see, say there's somebody in India who's wanting to run for office, and this say 1 square mile patch of dirt has been a particular sticking point lately. Well, guy running for re-election will be like, I will take that patch of dirt from the Chinese. I will take it from them, and I will make it look good. So he sends about 100 guys with sticks and martial arts, and just swarms over the area. Chinese will fight back, and then the next time Xi Jinping or somebody else needs to distract the public, they're going to send 100 Chinese guys into that same 1 square mile patch of dirt. And they're just going to trade it back and forth. And they're going to use it as a chess piece to distract the public from what's really going on. And they've got
our government uses,
but they've got it even better than we do. They've got it even better than we do because they both have massive populations. And what India cares about its civilian population and military troops a lot more than the Chinese do. The Chinese, literally everything is expendable.
Yeah, Chinese, they don't give a shit if you die. It's all about Xi Jinping. He was almost like up to emperor status back in Japan.
Oh yeah. And
Thomas,
India, on
I
the
think
other
he's
hand,
gonna clean it up and polish it up for Thomas. That's what Dave's doing to Ray's car.
making love to Ray's car. But on India's side, if they lose soldiers,
damn it! Now you got that in my head.
If they lose soldiers, to them that is a heroic moment. They can immortalize those soldiers for all time. That's the funeral processions, and they always remember this guy, remember this guy, remember this guy. They died bravely fighting the Chinese enemy. Whereas the Chinese can go, 52 troops bravely defended the border today over in India and bravely fought to the last man. Blah, blah, blah. Next news story. They won't care. Whereas the Indians will care, but at the same time, it's a chess piece between the two countries that they can constantly shift around the board a little bit whenever they need to distract their civilian population. And both sides realize that. So they allow this situation to keep going. They will never, ever, ever sign a treaty unless the Chinese government gets completely replaced by someone that is just willing to say, you know what, we've got enough territory, we've got enough people. We'll just sign a peace treaty. We'll just cut the border right where it is right now and just leave it at that. We renounce all claims to all these other territories here. And that won't happen unless, number one, Xi Jinping is out of office, which probably won't happen anytime soon. Number two, whoever's in charge in India also is in a position to agree with that because, like I said, both sides realize that is a chess piece that they can keep shifting back and forth just every fucking time they need some distraction. Which is why a Chinese-India war will never really happen.
Well, y'all, I hate to do this, but it is 9 o'clock, and I've got some things I've got to take care of.
Yep, I was watching the time.
Thank you for hanging out with us. Cal, thanks for all the information. Appreciate it, bud.
I love talking.
We know.
Cora, you should have joined us.
She wanted the day off. She needed the rest. I think her day is going to be spent with Chubbs on the sectional.
Have fun. Enjoy yourself. Everybody take care. And Chris, were we going to do a little prayer here?
Yes. Thank you for reminding me.
Don't remember everything, but I remember some things. Take it away.
Dear Lord, thank you for letting us gather here today and in congregate and talk and share opinions with each other. Dear Lord, please keep your hand on all of us, protect us, and guide us the way that you want us to go. Teach us the way that you want us to be. Dear Lord, watch over Gravy and his friends as they travel home from their retreat. Make sure they get home safely. We pray for those that need healing. Cindy, Gina. There's someone else I'm forgetting, I know. Thomas, praying for him. We pray for Lori's dad as he goes through treatment. And just please touch our leaders, teach them the way that they need to go to better lead us in your direction as well. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. You have a great day, and I will see you at 4 o'clock. I think
Take care, everybody, and stay safe.
If it's raining like this at 4, I'm going to have a regular damn fire. Fuck this little propane.
We'll see if I can be here. I may be occupied, but I'll try to be here. Y'all take care.
All right. See you all later. Be safe. Let me flip my camera. We go down. Go down. All right, y'all. Thank you. It's been a fun morning. Y'all be safe. We'll see you at 4. Love you. Peace. We're out.